Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we delve into sources to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating exploration, actually. It's an ancient text, Jeremiah chapter 4. Our source is an insightful study, MCS Jeremiah chapter 4. And it kicks off with a pretty provocative core idea. Religion, it says, even reformed religion, brings death. Now, that's a claim that stops you in your tracks, doesn't it? How does a text thousands of years old make such a bold, almost unsettling statement about religion itself? Join us as we trace Jeremiah's prophetic message here, looking at how, true transformation is so different from just outward practice, and what happens when that difference is missed.
It's really fascinating, yeah, because Jeremiah in this chapter, he lays out this incredibly stark choice for ancient Israel and Judah, and it's a choice that honestly still resonates today, doesn't it? This whole tension between genuine, deep change versus just conforming on the outside, it really pushes us to look past the surface.
Okay, so let's dive right in then. Jeremiah 4, verses 1 and 2. God calls out to Israel, saying, "If you will return to me. And if you will banish your abominations from my presence without wandering astray again, and if you will swear, as Adonai lives, in truth, justice, and righteousness, then the nations will bless themselves by him, and in him will they glory." So this return, what does that really mean? It sounds like more than just coming back physically.
Oh, absolutely. It's a powerful echo, actually, of God's original promise way back with Abraham in Genesis 12. Israel was meant to be this bright, shining light in the dark pagan world. That was their calling. So the return wasn't just about, ticking boxes or following rules again. It was about embodying this divine purpose, a purpose that was supposed to impact all the nations around them. That phrase, "the nations will invoke blessings by him," that points directly to that core mission. They were meant to show God's way.
Okay, so it's not just what they do, but who they are, their whole being, their inner state. And Jeremiah 4, verses 3 and 4 expands on this. It says, "Break up your ground that hasn't been plowed, and do not sow among thorns." And then this really critical line jumps out. "Circumcise yourselves for Adonai, remove the foreskins of your heart."
That last part. That definitely suggests something much deeper than the physical act, right?
Exactly. And this is where the study we're looking at really highlights a key point about King Josiah's Reformation. Now, historically, Josiah did a lot. He cleaned up the temple, got rid of idols, brought back the law, looked great on the surface. A real positive move, you'd think. But the text here, Jeremiah, points out that this whole religious reformation, it did not begin with a changed heart, that unplowed ground image that symbolizes hearts that hadn't been softened, hadn't been prepared for real change. So no genuine repentance had actually happened deep down. The outward stuff, however good it looked, was kind of hollow without that inner shift. Right. Okay, let's unpack that a bit more then. The literal physical circumcise versus this cutting of the heart. What's the core distinction our source is making there?
Well, the word circumcise itself literally means to cut around. And sure, the people were willing to do the physical act for their children. It was a key religious marker, a sign of belonging to God's people. But the true meaning Jeremiah is driving at here is this cutting of the heart. It means a deep, profound sorrow over sin, understanding its destructive effects, and having a genuine desire for real internal transformation. Think of it like this, maybe. You can put on a fancy suit, clean your house spotless, say all the right phrases, but if your heart's unchanged, if your motives are still rotten underneath, it's just a performance, isn't it? And Jeremiah is saying that kind of religion, all show, no substance, it's ultimately dead. It doesn't bring life, it doesn't bring blessing, it just gives the illusion of it. And eventually that leads to destruction. That's the really powerful, unsettling idea behind the study's claim that religion brings death. A dead external religion just lacks true life. It fails.
Wow. So this reformation without revival, as the source puts it, was actually leading them towards death, not life. And despite this urgent call for real change, the very next verses, Jeremiah 4.56, they just announce disaster, don't they? "Announce in Yehuda, Judah, proclaim in Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, blow the shofar in the land." That's the ram's horn, the alarm signal. And then, "I will bring disaster from the north, yes, dire destruction."
It's stark, yeah. The prophet is crystal clear. Judgment is coming on Judah. And he even names the instrument God will use, Babylon. Verse 7 describes Babylon like, "A lion has risen from his lair, a destroyer of nations has set out, left his own place to ruin your land." And notice the timing. It says Babylon had already left their own land. The judgment wasn't just a possibility. It was already underway. It was imminent, practically at the doorstep.
And with this catastrophe bearing down, what about the leaders, the spiritual guides? Verse 9 paints a pretty bleak picture of how they'll react. "The king's heart will fail him, likewise the princes, the Kohanim, That's the priests, will be appalled and the prophets stupefied. Sounds like total paralysis, powerless.
Yeah, and it connects, doesn't it, to that warning Jesus gave later in Matthew 7, where even people who prophesy in his name are told, essentially, I never knew you. The religious leaders in Judah, despite all their titles and outward shows of piety, they were stuck in their self-righteous religion, the study calls it. They just couldn't see the real threat, spiritually or physically. Their focus on the external had blinded them completely.
Okay, but then we hit this really difficult moment in verse 10. Jeremiah himself cries out. He says, "Oh, Adonai Elohim, surely you have sadly deceived this people in Jerusalem by saying you will have peace when the sword is at our very throats." Now, that's tough. How do we square that? God allowing deception, allowing false hope when destruction is coming. That's a hard thing for people to hear.
It is a hard thing. It's a really crucial question, and the study doesn't shy away from it. It acknowledges that God did allow the people to be deceived by the false prophets and leaders who were promising peace, saying, don't worry, judgment isn't coming. And the study draws a chilling parallel, actually, to prophecies about the last days when the Antichrist figure supposedly gets the world to buy into some kind of worthless peace treaty. So how do we understand it? It's not that God is actively lying, but rather that he's permitting the natural outcome of their persistent rebellion, their choice to reject truth. It's maybe like a parent who, after countless warnings, finally allows a child to experience the natural, painful consequence of a bad choice. Not out of malice, but because sometimes that's the only way to learn. It's a difficult path, no doubt. But the text kind of lands on, we have to accept that God knows the hearts of all men, and he knows what he's doing, even when his methods seem harsh or indirect to us, even when he allows deception to play out.
That analogy does help make sense of a really challenging idea.
Okay.
And the judgment itself, as described so vividly in verses 11 and 12, a scorching wind from the desert heights. It is not coming to winnow or cleanse. This wind of mine's too strong for that. That imagery, it suggests it's way beyond purification. It's just devastation.
Absolutely highlights the severity, yes. A normal winnowing wind separates grain from chaff. It's selective. It purifies. The scorching wind, it's overwhelming, destructive. And the text is clear. It's going to fall on all of the people. No one's exempt. And then verse 13 just hammers home how unstoppable this threat is, describing Babylon's army. Here he comes like the clouds, his chariots like the whirlwind, his horses faster than eagles. Babylon was known for speed, for overwhelming force. There was really no escape. But interestingly, the study pulls out a point for Thanksgiving, even here. It says, we should thank God that he deals with us on an individual basis, and we do not get what we as a nation deserve. It points to a kind of underlying grace, even within this picture of judgment.
And even with that unstoppable force on the horizon, there's still this glimmer, maybe a last desperate plea in verse 14. Wash the evil from your heart, Jerusalem, so that you can be saved. How long, God asks, will they harbor these evil thoughts? It feels like the door isn't completely shut, even now.
It's God's persistence, isn't it? He keeps calling them to repent. He's urging them, look, remember what happened to the northern kingdom, Israel. They fell for the same reasons. It really emphasizes that even right on the brink, genuine internal change washing the heart is still offered as the way to salvation. The choice, right up to the end, it seems, is still theirs. It shows incredible patience, really, despite their stubbornness.
So the obvious question then is, why? Why would God judge his own chosen people so harshly, allow this level of devastation? Verses 16 and 17 state it pretty clearly. Report it to the nations, proclaim about Jerusalem. Enemies are coming from a distant country, because she has rebelled against me, says Adonai.
Well, remember their purpose. Israel and Judah were chosen specifically to be God's people and an example to the pagan world. But they had turned away from their purpose. They rejected God, ran after idols, made political alliances instead of trusting him. So this judgment, as harsh as it was, would also serve as this powerful, unavoidable lesson to all the surrounding nations. It was an example of the penalty for rejecting the one true God, a demonstration of divine justice playing out so the world would see the consequences.
And verse 18 really drives home the personal responsibility angle.
Yeah.
Your own ways and your actions have brought these things on yourselves. This is your wickedness so bitter it has reached your very heart. It's not just some abstract national sin. It's hitting them individually, like, you did this.
Exactly. It reminds us that God, as creator, sets the standard for right and wrong. He gives freedom, he gives choice, but with that choice comes responsibility and consequences. Their bitterness, their wickedness wasn't forced on them. It came from their own choices, their own actions. It reached right into their core because it started there.
Now, it's easy to just focus on the big picture of prophecy and judgment, but the study rightly points out Jeremiah's own intense personal pain in all this, verses 19 to 21. He cries out, my guts, I'm writhing in pain. My heart, it beats wildly. I can't stay still, because I have heard the shofar sound. It's the call to war. And he just laments. The news is disaster after disaster. That physical description of his anguish, it's raw.
It's incredibly profound, isn't it? It shows the heart of the prophet. I mean, nobody wants to deliver news like that, especially not about your own people you love. Jeremiah clearly loves them enough to tell them the awful truth, but it's breaking him. You feel his suffering. And the study poses a really sharp question for us, for anyone reading this today. As Christians, we should have this same type of burden for those around us that will be facing judgment. Do we feel that kind of ache? It really highlights the weight of truth when it's coupled with genuine compassion.
And God's own description of his people is just as harsh, isn't it? Verse 22, it is because my people are foolish, they do not know me. They are stupid children without understanding. Wise when doing evil, but they don't know how to do good. That's a brutal assessment. It just lays bare their spiritual state.
Yeah, the study connects that straight back to Proverbs 1, where Solomon defines a fool as someone who just will not listen to instruction. God is essentially saying, I tried. I warned them over and over, sent messengers. They just refused to listen. Their only skill, their only wisdom was in doing wrong. They had zero grasp of goodness, zero desire for it. They actively chose ignorance over knowing him.
Then the description of the judgment's effects. It gets almost apocalyptic. Verses 23 to 26. I looked at the land, it was unformed and void, like Genesis 1 before creation, and at the sky it had no light. I looked at the mountains and they shook. There was no human being. All the birds in the air had fled.
Yeah.
Cities destroyed. It's like a complete uncreation.
It's a striking image, definitely. That direct parallel to Genesis 1, unformed and void, shows a reversal back to utter chaos. It really underscores just how total, how comprehensive this judgment is going to feel. A decreation, like you said. The order is gone, replaced by devastation.
But then, even amidst that level of devastation, there's this word of mercy tucked in. Verses 27 and 28. The whole land will be desolate. But then God adds, although I will not destroy it completely. So there's still a limit. It's not total annihilation.
And that's crucial, isn't it? Judgment was coming. It was inevitable because of their choices. But it wasn't the absolute final total destruction that maybe Jeremiah feared or that John describes later in Revelation. God showed mercy then. He preserved a remnant. He didn't wipe them out entirely. But the study adds an important clarification. That mercy is not unending for those who reject Jesus Christ. There's a distinction made between this historical judgment on Judah and the ultimate eternal consequences for persistently rejecting God's final plan for salvation.
Right. And the judgment hits everywhere. Verse 29 says the cities are deserted. And then verse 30 uses this incredibly powerful, almost disturbing metaphor for Judah's spiritual condition. Quote, and you who are doomed to be plundered, what do you mean by putting on crimson, decking yourselves with jewels and gold, enlarging your eyes with eye makeup? You beautify yourself in vain. Your lovers despise you. They seek your life. Wow, what a picture that paints.
It's Judah portrayed as a cheating wife getting all made up to attract a man, as the study puts it. It's this graphic image of their spiritual adultery. They'd turn to other nations for security, for alliances, adopting their gods and practices instead of relying on God. All that effort to look attractive, all that outward adornment, utterly useless because the very lovers they were trying to impress, those nations, would ultimately be the ones to turn on them and destroy them. It just highlights the deep betrayal and the complete futility of their superficial approach.
And the final image, verse 31. It describes the agony of judgment, like the pain of a woman in labor, in anguish, giving birth to her first child. It's the daughter of Zion, representing Jerusalem, or the people gasping for breath as she faces her killers. That really conveys the sheer agony, the unavoidable consequence. It's not just a battle. It's this primal, gut-wrenching suffering.
It absolutely does. That metaphor is universally understood. Intense, unavoidable pain, the culmination of something that can't be stopped once it starts. It vividly portrays the helplessness and the sheer agony of Judah as the judgment finally hits. A really powerful, lingering image of suffering brought about by their own rebellion.
So wrapping this up, what does this deep dive into Jeremiah 4 really tell us? What are the takeaways? It seems to hammer home that true repentance, real change, it's not about the external stuff, not rituals, not superficial fixes. It's about a radical transformation of the heart, a deep sorrow, a genuine turning back to God. It underscores that choices have consequences, definitely, for individuals and for nations. And while God's judgment is presented as very real, there's also this thread of mercy, this chance for change offered, it seems, right up until the last moment.
And that brings us back to that provocative starting point, doesn't it? Religion brings death. It really challenges you, the listener, to think, how do we tell the difference between genuine heart-level change and just, tweaking behavior on the surface in our own lives, in the world around us? This ancient chapter forces us to look deeper than appearances, to really question the nature of commitment. Is it real? Is it just show?
And it reveals the incredible burden on someone like Jeremiah, a prophet who clearly loved his people so much that he told them these incredibly hard truths, even while it was tearing him apart personally.
That's such a crucial point to end on. And it leaves us with a question, doesn't it, for each of us? Do our hearts ache for people around us, people maybe heading towards difficult consequences the way Jeremiah's ached for his people? Do we have that same kind of burden, that same courage to speak truth, even when it's painful? That's definitely something to mull over.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration of Jeremiah 4 has offered some fresh insights, maybe sparked a few aha moments for you. Until next time, keep digging into the depths of knowledge.